my presentation is visible to everybody. So I will be mostly talking about tiger conservation research initiatives in the state of Maharashtra. And Maharashtra is one of the states in India which has been on the forefront for tiger research across India. And the number of research initiatives which Maharashtra has started are beyond imagination. It's not only about tiger conservation, it's about conservation of the major fauna in the state of Maharashtra. So we started way back in 2012-13, and the first project which we did was the identification of the 4 critical corridors in the state of Maharashtra, and especially in the Vidarbha region. So this is the map which most of the people are nowadays using, and this map is about the corridors in the Vidarbha landscape of the Maharashtra. And going further, using this particular data set, we have also identified human-tiger conflict areas, the potential areas where there's a possibility of conflict. And we have identified a landscape of around 8,300 square kilometers, which has a potential of a human-wildlife conflict in the state of Maharashtra. And very interestingly, based on our telemetry data and based on the other information which we collected in the state of Maharashtra, we have identified around 2,000 forest patches, which are the size of 1 to 5 square kilometers, which is outside protected areas, one of the critical forest areas, one of the stepping stone corridors, which is very crucial for maintaining the connectivity across the landscape. And we have also studied the fragmentation, and we know that there are only 5 to 6 areas in Maharashtra which are more than 1,000 square kilometers. And most of these areas are either in Tadoba, Melghat, or in Gadchiroli Forest Division of the Maharashtra. And we have also found what are the areas in Maharashtra where there are no roads. Around 40,000 square kilometers of the Maharashtra is roadless. That means there are still potential areas and potential forest patches in Maharashtra which are roadless. So this is the background information which is very critical for thinking about conservation initiatives in the state of Maharashtra. And there were a lot of incidents of tigers dying because of the electrocution. And there was a very big question, how many villages are getting electrocution for the agriculture purpose? And we were asked to tell us what are the critical areas which are high risk zones for the electrocution for the tigers in the state of Maharashtra. And we have come up with a solution which found out that there are more than 121 villages in 5 districts of the Maharashtra which are very critical for electrocution in these particular areas. So if we have to think about conservation of the tigers and the electrocution issues of the tigers in these particular areas, we have to think about electrocution problems in these particular villages. So Maharashtra is not thinking about only Vidarbha. Maharashtra is also going to areas beyond the traditional Vidarbha landscape. Like Maharashtra has now started to focus its initiative of tiger recovery and conservation in Gadchiroli areas. So we have done first assessment of the Gadchiroli, the Pranhita Wildlife Sanctuary. Yes, there's a potential that Pranhita Wildlife Sanctuary will be one of the potential tiger reserves, potential tiger areas in future. But a lot of things like Limesa indicated that we need to think about the prey recovery in this particular protected area. So one of the most important project which we have completed recently in the state of Maharashtra was about the tiger dispersal. This is one of the India's only project which focused on studying the dispersal of the animals in human-dominated landscape. As a part of this project, we have collared something around 23 tigers, and these are the routes of the different tigers. And but one of the most interesting was this particular animal, which is known as a T1C1. So this tiger was actually coming out from a senior. We tried to rescue it. We rescued this particular tiger, and after 1 month, this tiger was perfectly fit into Peshawar Wildlife Sanctuary. We were not thinking this tiger will move anymore. We were thinking that this tiger is going to stay into Peshawar Wildlife Sanctuary. But this tiger actually surprised everybody, and this tiger is one of the longest traveler tiger now in the history of tiger conservation. This tiger has traveled more than 3,000 kilometers and has traveled from Peshawar to Dhyan Wildlife Sanctuary. And most interesting thing is, if you see that 60 to 70% of its travel was through human-dominated landscape. And this was the time when people were also there in the agriculture field. So no one was able to know about the presence of this particular tiger in human-dominated landscapes. So this tiger has given us a lot of insights into tiger movement in human dominated landscapes. We just need to follow them. They know themselves. They adapt so much that we were not able to see this tiger for almost 6 months when he was traveling through these human dominated landscapes, and he has traveled exclusively through agriculture dominated landscapes. So tigers, as soon as they leave protected areas, they become very adaptable. So it's only we need to give them some space so that they are able to move from one particular area to another particular area. We have, I think the Tadoba Tiger Reserve is one of the longest one of the tiger reserves which has a long history of research now. We have started in 2012, and continuously this is only tiger reserve which has a continuous monitoring data of 9 years. And now we have done another MOU with government of Maharashtra, so we'll be monitoring this tiger reserve for the next 10 years. So at the end of the day, this tiger reserve will have a tiger data of more than 20 years, which will be longest in the history of tiger conservation. And this is one of the great initiatives done by government forest department, government of Maharashtra. This is the pre-recovery map of Maharashtra. If you see, I have written village relocation here, and I have seen a map. So as soon as there was a relocation of the villages from the Tadoba Andhari Tiger Reserve, the prey species started recovering. As soon as the prey species started recovering, we have seen the increase in number of tigers in the state. So we have now, this was the initial phase of research which went for first 5 years. So we have initiated the next phase of the research in the state of Maharashtra. This was initiated in 2019, and this phase is for next 10 years. So in this particular phase, we'll be moving out from the Tadoba, and we'll be also including the other 5 tiger reserves for long-term research in the state of Maharashtra. This is the first time in the history of our country then a state has signed an MOU for 10 years of research in its protected area, especially in tiger reserves. No other state has yet signed an MOU which is for more than 10 years. And as a part of this MOU, so far we have trained 1,200 forest officers, including range of forest officers, special task forces, force officers, and guards, our beat guards. And they have done camera trapping in almost 2,000 grids across the land, across different tiger reserves in the state of Maharashtra. We are also trying to initiate a research project which talks about the conflict in the state of Maharashtra. We will be dividing Maharashtra into different conflicting zones. We'll be dividing the Maharashtra into areas where only tigers can survive, which is our core areas where no humans are allowed. We will also identify the areas where tigers can occur with 20%, 30% conflict. And we can also identify areas where tigers, if they occur there, the conflict will go more than 30, 60%, 70%. And then we will think about the different types of the strategy across these different zones. So it's not only tiger in Maharashtra. As a part of the tiger research in Maharashtra, we are also doing the dhole research in the state of Maharashtra. And this is the first dhole research project anywhere in the country which has involved use of GPS collars. And there were very interesting questions about the recovery of the tigers in Naxira-Navegaon Tiger Reserve. Yes, we have found very interesting mechanism how wild dogs are responsible for a decline of the keeping tigers in control in Navegaon Naxira Tiger Reserve. So if we have to increase the population of the tigers in Navegaon Naxira Tiger Reserve, what are the different types of the measures which we need to do so that we can enhance the number of tigers in that particular state? So this is one of the most interesting species, rattle, in Indian forests. And Maharashtra is the only state which has initiated the first ever research project to understand the ecology of this particular species. It's a total nocturnal species. We know nothing about this species. What are the number of individuals which in our country, how they live, what is their diet, how they occupy the landscape with tigers and other predators. So Maharashtra as a state has come forward to initiate even the research projects for the species which are very less known. We are also thinking about there can be a fragmentation, there can be corridors. Everybody is talking about the tiger corridors, but Maharashtra is the only state which is thinking about tiger corridors, wild dog corridors, leopard corridors, and corridors for the multiple species. So we are moving from a single species corridor to multiple species corridor research, and we'll be the first in the country which will have a corridor map not available for only for the tigers but available for most of the species. And it's not only about radio collaring, camera trapping. We also have a genetic projects in the state of Maharashtra. So we are looking into the genetics of the various species, which includes the wild dogs, tigers, leopards, and sloth bears, across the protected areas of the Maharashtra. We want to have a genetic backup of all the species in the state of Maharashtra. If there is any poaching incident anywhere in the world, and we'll be able to know whether these tigers are coming from Maharashtra or any other state. So we are developing a genetic database for all the predator species, large carnivore species for the state of Maharashtra. And as was initially put by Dr. Dr. Ravikar Govekar, that it's not only about tiger conservation, it's not about calling at this one. Maharashtra, we as a country, we are the first country who has built the biggest mitigation measures in the world. And Maharashtra is the first state in our country which has these mitigation measures. So we have the biggest mitigation measures in the state of Maharashtra. And I will just share one of the information. In last 6 months, 5,000 animals have used these structures. So in other sense, we have saved 5,000 accidents across this stretch of road in the state of Maharashtra. 11 different tigers. We have 89 tiger crossings in these particular mitigation measures in the state of Maharashtra. So this is a very brief, this is just the introduction about the various research projects which we are doing in the state of Maharashtra. I will end my presentation over here. If there is any question, we can take that question later in discussion session.